Deep beneath the abandoned Kepler 442b mining colony, something ancient stirs in the darkness. For creatures that the galaxy believes are myths, legends whispered among starfaring races as cautionary tales of power beyond imagination. Dragons. Real, breathing, thinking beings who have slumbered for millennia in the deepest shafts of what humans foolishly thought was just another mineral extraction site. But, when maintenance engineer Jake Morrison descends into those forgotten tunnels to investigate power fluctuations, he doesn't just discover the impossible, he awakens it. And, in that moment of first contact, when four pairs of ancient eyes open in the shadows and regard this small, stubborn human with curiosity rather than hunger, the entire balance of galactic power begins to shift. The Galactic Council has spent centuries convincing themselves that humans are nothing more than useful laborers, good with tools, decent at following orders, but lacking the inherent magic or advanced evolution that marks truly important species. They're about to learn why you should never underestimate the species that refuses to give up, refuses to bow down, and somehow always finds a way to befriend the most dangerous things in the universe. What happens when humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers, but our inexplicable ability to earn the loyalty of beings that could reshape reality itself? What happens when the dragons choose their side? The answer lies in the shadows of an abandoned mine, where one human's curiosity is about to rewrite the rules of galactic civilization forever. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the maintenance panel's blinking red lights. The readings made no sense at all. Power fluctuations this deep in the abandoned Kepler 442b mining facility shouldn't even be possible. The main reactors had been shut down for 3 years when the Galactic Mining Consortium declared the site economically unviable. Another dead rock, Jake muttered, echoing the words of his Xylonian supervisor from his last assignment. The blueskin alien had dismissed human concerns about proper shutdown procedures with typical galactic arrogance. Humans worry too much about details. Just seal it and move to profitable sites. But Jake knew better than to ignore power anomalies. 20 years of engineering experience across 12 different worlds had taught him that strange readings usually meant trouble. And trouble in abandoned facilities had a way of becoming expensive disasters that someone would eventually blame on human negligence. He shouldered his equipment pack and headed for the service elevator. The facility's artificial gravity hummed steadily around him, one of the few systems still functioning normally. Emergency lighting cast long shadows down the corridors, giving the place an eerie atmosphere that reminded him why most species avoided deep underground work. The elevator descended past levels Jake had mapped dozens of times during the active mining period. Level 15, where they'd extracted rare earth elements for starship hulls. Level 23, where the automated refineries had processed ore around the clock. Level 31, where the deepest regular mining operations had taken place before the consortium decided the remaining deposits weren't worth the effort. But the power readings were coming from much deeper. Level 47. Jake had only been down there twice before, both times for emergency repairs to monitoring equipment. The mining tunnels at that depth had been carved by the previous occupants of this system, a long-extinct species the galactic archaeologists called the Builders. Most races considered builder ruins too dangerous to explore thoroughly, but humans had a reputation for going where others feared to tread. The elevator shuddered to a stop. Jake stepped out into a corridor that felt different from the upper levels. The walls here weren't smooth metal and polymer composites. They were carved stone, covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the emergency lighting. The air felt heavier somehow, charged with an energy that made the hair on his arms stand up. His scanner beeped softly. The power fluctuations were stronger here, pulsing in a rhythm that almost seemed organic. Jake followed the readings deeper into the tunnel network, past chambers where the original mining equipment sat covered in dust. The consortium had pulled out anything valuable when they abandoned the site, leaving behind only the heavy machinery that would cost more to transport than replace. 20 minutes of walking brought him to a section of tunnel he'd never seen before. The emergency lighting ended abruptly, replaced by a faint glow that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Builder technology, Jake realized. Still active after thousands of years. His headlamp cut through the gloom as he moved deeper. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that took his breath away. Crystalline formations jutted from the ceiling like frozen lightning, each one pulsing with soft bioluminescent light. The chamber walls were covered in carvings more complex than anything he'd seen in other builder ruins. And, at the center of it all, 4 raised platforms arranged in a perfect square. On each platform lay a creature that should not exist. Dragons. Jake had seen the ancient recordings from humanity's early space explorations, back when Earth's mythologies were still considered historical rather than fictional. These beings matched every description from the old stories, but they were larger than he'd imagined. Each dragon was easily 30 feet long, with scales that reflected the crystal light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The red dragon's scales seemed to contain actual flames, flickering and dancing beneath the surface without producing heat. The blue dragon appeared to be made of living water, its form rippling gently as if breathing underwater. The green dragon's scales shifted between leaf and emerald, occasionally sprouting tiny plants that wilted and regrew in endless cycles. The golden dragon seemed to be forged from sunlight itself, too bright to observe directly. They were sleeping. Had been sleeping for a very long time, judging by the dust and mineral deposits that had accumulated around the platforms. But Jake's scanner was going crazy in their presence, detecting energy signatures that exceeded anything in his database. He should leave. Every protocol he'd ever learned about xenological discoveries demanded immediate retreat and notification of proper authorities. The Galactic Council had strict procedures for dealing with unknown species, especially potentially dangerous ones. Humans were expected to follow those procedures without question. Instead, Jake found himself moving closer. The crystalline formations in the ceiling pulsed brighter as he approached the platforms. The dragon's breathing became more pronounced, deep and slow but definitely present. Living creatures, not statues or builder artifacts. Somehow, impossibly, these mythical beings had survived in stasis for thousands of years. Jake's boot scuffed against a loose stone. The tiny sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. 4 pairs of ancient eyes opened simultaneously. The red dragon's gaze burned like looking into a star's core. The blue dragon's eyes were deep as ocean trenches. The green dragon looked at him with the wisdom of ancient forests. The golden dragon's stare contained the warmth of a perfect sunrise. Jake stood frozen, barely breathing, waiting for death or worse. These were dragons, legendary beings of immense power. Every human child grew up hearing stories of their might, their intelligence, their terrible wrath when awakened. The rational part of his mind screamed at him to run. But something else held him in place. Something in their expressions that wasn't anger or hunger or the predatory calculation he'd expected. Curiosity. The red dragon spoke first, its voice like distant thunder rolling through mountain valleys. But, somehow, impossibly, Jake understood every word despite never hearing the language before. A small one comes to the deep places, the dragon said, raising its massive head from the platform. A small one with tools and light and the scent of star metal upon him. The blue dragon's voice flowed like a river over stones. Not of the builder kind, this one. Different. Younger. But he walks their paths without fear. The scent is familiar, added the green dragon, whose words rustled like wind through leaves. We have tasted this essence before, in dreams of distant worlds and strange suns. The golden dragon remained silent, but Jake felt its attention like warm sunlight on his face. He realized they were waiting for him to speak. These ancient, powerful beings were giving him the chance to explain his presence before they decided his fate. Jake cleared his throat, hoping his voice wouldn't crack. I'm Jake Morrison, he said, surprised by how steady he sounded. I'm a maintenance engineer. I came down here to investigate power fluctuations. Engineer, repeated the red dragon, seeming to taste the word. A maker of solutions. A mender of broken things. And, Morrison, said the blue dragon. Son of Morris, if our understanding of small one naming customs proves correct. Tell us, Jake Morrison, son of Morris, engineer of solutions, what do your people call themselves? Human, Jake replied. We're called humans. The 4 dragons exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of information. The green dragon's eyes widened first. Humans, it said slowly. The star wanderers who refused the easy paths. The builders who reached upward when others looked down. The ones who tamed fire and lightning and the void between worlds through will alone. We have heard whispers of your kind, the blue dragon added. Stories carried on solar winds and quantum fluctuations. The species that befriends the unbefriendable. That stands when others kneel. That finds hope in hopeless places. The red dragon leaned forward, studying Jake intently. Tell us, small human, what has become of the galaxy since we slept? Do your people thrive among the stars? Jake hesitated. How could he explain the current state of galactic civilization to beings who remembered when humanity was probably still discovering agriculture? How could he describe the Galactic Council's treatment of his species without sounding bitter or accusatory? It's complicated, he said finally. Humans are part of the galactic community now, but we're considered a minor species. We do a lot of the maintenance work, mining, dangerous jobs that other races don't want to do. The Council treats us as useful laborers, but not as equals. The Golden Dragon spoke for the first time, its voice carrying harmonics that resonated in Jake's bones. They underestimate you. Yeah, Jake said with a rueful smile. They tend to do that. As they did us, rumbled the Red Dragon. The builders thought themselves wise when they bound us to this place with their crystalline matrices. They believed power could be contained, channeled, controlled for their purposes. Where are they now? Asked the Blue Dragon with amusement rippling through its voice. Extinct, said the Green Dragon matter-of-factly. While we merely slept. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. You destroyed them? Time destroyed them, the Golden Dragon replied. Pride destroyed them. Fear of change destroyed them. We simply outlasted them, as mountains outlast storms. But, you, said the Red Dragon, focusing on Jake again, you came here not knowing we existed. You descended into darkness to solve a problem others would ignore. You spoke to us without cowering or trying to bargain for your life. Why? Jake thought about it seriously. Because someone needs to fix things when they break. Because ignoring problems doesn't make them go away. Because I was curious, I guess. Curiosity, repeated the Blue Dragon. The builderkind lost that quality before the end. They became certain they knew all that was worth knowing. And, the other star peoples, asked the Green Dragon. Do they share your curiosity, Jake Morrison? Some do, Jake admitted. But, most prefer certainty to questions. They like having humans around to handle the uncertain stuff. The four dragons were silent for a long moment. Jake could feel them communicating somehow, sharing thoughts or emotions through means he couldn't detect. Finally, the Golden Dragon spoke. We have slept for 7,000 years, small human. 7,000 years of dreams filled with distant stars and the whispered legends of a young species that refused to accept limitations. We had begun to wonder if those dreams were merely hopes. And, now? Jake asked. Now, said the Red Dragon, rising to its full height on the platform, we are awake. The question becomes, what shall we do with this wakening? The Blue Dragon flowed upright like a living waterfall. The crystals that held us were powered by the planet's core, but that energy has been disrupted by the mining operations. The binding that kept us here weakens. Soon we will be free to leave this place, added the Green Dragon, unfolding wings that seemed to contain entire ecosystems in miniature. Free to walk among the stars once again. The Golden Dragon's wings spread wide, filling the chamber with warm light. The galaxy has changed in our absence. New powers have risen. Old patterns have shifted. It will take time to understand this new age. Jake felt the weight of the moment settling on him. He was witnessing something that would reshape galactic civilization, assuming he survived to tell anyone about it. For legendary beings were preparing to emerge from mythical hiding into a reality where most people believed them to be fairy tales. What do you plan to do? He asked. That depends, said the Red Dragon, on what we find when we explore this new galaxy. On whether the young species we dreamed about has lived up to its potential. And, on whether that species proves worthy of friendship, added the Blue Dragon. Or if they have become just another form of builder, said the Green Dragon grimly. The Golden Dragon studied Jake with those brilliant eyes. Tell us, Jake Morrison, engineer of solutions, if we were to walk among your people, how would we be received? Jake considered lying, offering comfortable reassurances that would please them. But, something about their presence made deception feel impossible. These beings had survived for millennia. They deserved honest answers. The Council would try to capture you, he said bluntly. They'd want to study you, figure out how to use your abilities for their own benefit. Some humans might react with fear, others with wonder. But, the people in charge would see you as either weapons to be controlled or threats to be eliminated. Honest, rumbled the Red Dragon approvingly. We appreciate honesty, even when it brings unwelcome truths. Especially then, agreed the Blue Dragon. But, you, said the Green Dragon, you do not seem eager to report our existence to these authorities. Jake realized they were right. The thought of calling in his discovery to the consortium or the council filled him with instinctive dread. I should, he admitted. Protocol requires immediate notification of any xenological discoveries. But, you will not, stated the Golden Dragon. It wasn't a question. No, Jake said, surprising himself with his certainty. I won't. Why? Asked the Red Dragon. Jake struggled to put his feelings into words. Because I've seen what the council does to species they consider dangerous or valuable. Because I've watched them treat humans like useful tools instead of people. Because something this amazing deserves better than becoming another council asset. The dragons exchanged those meaningful glances again. When they looked back at him, Jake sensed that some kind of decision had been reached. We propose an arrangement, Jake Morrison, said the Golden Dragon. You have shown us respect and honesty. You have not tried to flee or summon others to overpower us. You treat us as beings worthy of conversation rather than prizes to be claimed. In return, continued the Red Dragon, we offer you knowledge, perspective, perhaps even friendship, if it proves mutually beneficial. But, first, added the Blue Dragon, we must see this galaxy you describe. We must understand what has grown from the seeds of civilization we knew long ago. Will you help us do this safely? Asked the Green Dragon. Will you guide us through this new age until we can walk among the stars without causing panic or unwanted attention? Jake felt the enormity of what they were asking. Help 4 legendary dragons navigate modern galactic society? The logistics alone seemed impossible. Where would they stay? How would they travel? How could beings of their size and power possibly remain hidden? But, as he looked into their ancient, intelligent eyes, Jake realized he'd already made his choice the moment he decided not to report their existence. Yes, he said simply. I'll help you. The chamber filled with a sound like distant music as the 4 dragons expressed their approval in harmonics that made the crystals overhead sing in response. For the first time in 7,000 years, the dragons were truly awakened, ready to explore a galaxy that had forgotten they ever existed. And, they had chosen a human engineer as their guide into this brave new world. 3 days passed before Jake could return to the chamber. Maintaining his normal work routine while planning for the impossible required careful balance. His supervisor, a perpetually irritated Krexan named Supervisor Thek, had questioned the extended diagnostic reports Jake filed to explain his frequent absences. Human Morrison, Thek had clicked in his species' choppy dialect, your efficiency ratings decrease. Consortium notices decreased efficiency. Explain. Jake had offered technical explanations about complex power grid analysis, knowing that Thek's administrative background left him unable to verify the details. Most alien supervisors preferred not to admit ignorance about human technical expertise, a blind spot Jake had learned to exploit over the years. When he finally made his way back to level 47, Jake carried supplies hidden throughout his standard equipment kit. Portable power cells, communication scramblers, basic medical supplies, and, most importantly, a quantum encryption device he'd quietly acquired through the facility's discretionary purchasing system. If the dragons were serious about exploring the galaxy without immediate detection, they'd need secure communication channels. The chamber looked exactly as he'd left it, but the dragons were no longer on their platforms. Jake found them positioned around the room, examining the builder carvings with intense concentration. Each dragon had somehow diminished their physical presence without actually shrinking, becoming less overwhelming while retaining their essential majesty. You return, observed the Red Dragon, whose scales now flickered with controlled flame rather than the raging inferno. Jake remembered. We wondered if dreams might claim you, as they sometimes claim mortals who encounter wonder beyond their capacity to process. I brought supplies, Jake said, unpacking his hidden cargo. And, I've been thinking about your situation. The blue dragon flowed closer, its form more solid than before but still suggesting liquid depth. Supplies suggest planning. Planning suggests commitment. Tell us your thoughts, Jake Morrison. Jake spread his materials on the chamber floor. First, communication. The galaxy runs on quantum networks, and every transmission is monitored by Council intelligence services. If you're going to interact with galactic civilization, you'll need untraceable communication channels. He activated the encryption device, watching its display cycle through connection protocols. This creates localized quantum tunnels that bypass standard monitoring systems. military-grade hardware that officially doesn't exist. Impressive, rumbled the Golden Dragon, whose radiance had dimmed to comfortable warmth. Your species develops useful tools for circumventing authority. We've had practice, Jake said dryly. Second issue, transportation. Your current forms would attract attention we can't handle. Ships, stations, settlements, everything is designed for smaller beings. You'd need to reduce your physical presence significantly. The green dragon, whose scales now showed subtle plant patterns rather than active growth, tilted its massive head. You assume we cannot alter our forms. Can you? Observe, said the red dragon. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. The red dragon's enormous form condensed inward, scales reshaping, proportions shifting, until a human-sized figure stood where the mythical creature had been. Still obviously draconic, scaled skin, elongated features, eyes that held ancient fire, but sized for normal interaction. Shape is fluid for our kind, explained the transformed dragon, its voice now matching its reduced stature. We grow large for war, small for subtlety, and every variation between according to need. The other three dragons demonstrated similar abilities, each assuming forms that retained their essential natures while becoming manageable for galactic civilization. The blue dragon's human-sized form seemed to be carved from living sapphire. The green dragon maintained its plant-like characteristics in miniature. The golden dragon's reduced form still radiated gentle warmth. That solves transportation, Jake admitted, impressed despite himself. But it creates new problems. Galactic identity systems are comprehensive. Everyone needs documented origins, species registration, travel permits, work authorization. You don't exist in any database. Yet you have solutions, stated the blue dragon. It wasn't a question. Jake hesitated. I have ideas. Not all of them legal. Legality, mused the green dragon, is often the refuge of those who fear change. The builders had many laws, added the red dragon. Thousands of regulations governing every aspect of existence. None of those laws saved them from their own limitations. The golden dragon studied Jake intently. What do you require from us to implement these illegal ideas? Jake pulled up holographic displays from his portable unit, showing galactic identity frameworks and documentation systems. Deep cover identities require background stories that hold up under investigation. You'd need to be refugees from a recently contacted species, something that explains your unfamiliarity with current galactic culture while accounting for your obvious intelligence and capabilities. He manipulated the display, highlighting recent expansion activities in unexplored sectors. The Andorian Reach was surveyed for the first time 6 months ago. 14 systems, multiple habitable worlds, but no intelligent species detected according to official reports. If a small population had been overlooked during initial surveys, they might only now be making contact with galactic civilization. A plausible deception, acknowledged the blue dragon. But what species would we claim to be? That's the elegant part, Jake said, warming to his plan. You don't claim to be anything specifically. You're refugees from an unnamed world, seeking asylum while your homeworld deals with environmental disaster. The Council has protocols for such situations, but the bureaucracy moves slowly enough to give you months of freedom before anyone asks detailed questions. The red dragon's transformed features showed approval. And, during those months? You learn. You explore. You decide what you want to do with your freedom. Jake paused. And, maybe you help me understand some things I've been wondering about. Such as, prompted the green dragon. Jake gestured at the chamber around them. This facility. The power readings that led me here. Your stasis systems. The builders created all of this, but I've never seen technology like it anywhere else in the galaxy. Where did it go? What happened to builder civilization? The golden dragon was quiet for a moment. You ask dangerous questions, Jake Morrison. I ask human questions, Jake replied. My species doesn't do well with mysteries left unsolved. The four dragons exchanged their silent communication again. Finally, the red dragon spoke. The builders were magnificent in their prime. They reshaped worlds, bridged galaxies, commanded energies that current civilization cannot imagine. They built wonders that lasted millennia and solved problems others thought impossible. But magnificence became arrogance, continued the blue dragon. They began to believe their own propaganda about genetic superiority and technological supremacy. They classified other species by usefulness rather than potential. Including yours? Jake guessed. Including ours, confirmed the Green Dragon. We were young then, by our standards. Curious about the galaxy, eager to learn and explore. When we encountered builder civilization, we hoped for friendship and knowledge exchange. Instead, they saw powerful beasts to be tamed, said the Golden Dragon quietly. They offered us comfort and safety in exchange for servitude. When we refused, they decided we were too dangerous to remain free. Jake felt sick as understanding dawned. The stasis chambers. They were prisons. Elaborate prisons, the Red Dragon agreed. Designed to contain us indefinitely while drawing on our life energies to power builder infrastructure. We were to be living batteries for their empire. What stopped them? Time, said the Blue Dragon simply. And their own success. When you solve every problem through overwhelming force, you stop developing the flexibility to handle new challenges. When you classify every other species as inferior, you stop learning from them. The galaxy changed around them, added the Green Dragon. New species rose, new technologies emerged, new ideas spread. The builders couldn't adapt because they'd convinced themselves adaptation was unnecessary. And they became extinct while their prisoners survived, Jake concluded. We nearly didn't, admitted the Golden Dragon. 7,000 years in stasis, drawing on emergency reserves while the power systems slowly degraded. If the mining operations hadn't disrupted the containment fields when they did, we would have died with our captor's empire. Jake absorbed this history, understanding now why the dragons had shown such interest in humanity's current status. You're wondering if we'll make the same mistakes they did. We are wondering, the Red Dragon confirmed, if your species will prove worthy of the friendship we offered the builders so long ago. The weight of that statement settled over Jake like a heavy cloak. These beings were offering humanity something the builders had rejected, partnership with creatures of immense power and ancient wisdom. But they were also evaluating whether humans deserved that opportunity. And if we don't, he asked. Then, we will find our own path among the stars, said the Blue Dragon matter-of-factly. As we have learned to do over countless ages. But we hope for better, added the Green Dragon. Your actions suggest your species retains qualities the builders lost. Curiosity. Adaptability. Respect for others despite power differences. Jake nodded slowly. The identity documentation will take a few days to arrange. I'll need to access restricted databases and create backdated records. Are you willing to wait? We have waited 7,000 years, the Golden Dragon pointed out. A few more days will not strain our patience. Good. And, while I work on that, maybe you could help me with something else. What do you require? Asked the Red Dragon. Jake gestured at his scanner, which still showed impossible energy readings in the dragon's presence. The Council thinks humans are only useful for manual labor because we lack inherent abilities like telepathy, energy manipulation, or genetic enhancement. But, we've always suspected there's more to it than that. Something about how we interact with technologies or energies that others can't access. You wish to understand your own potential, the Blue Dragon observed. I wish to understand why 4 legendary beings decided to trust a maintenance engineer instead of trying to contact galactic authorities directly. The dragons exchanged glances again, and Jake sensed amusement in their silent communication. Show him, said the Golden Dragon finally. The Red Dragon approached Jake, extending one scaled hand. Touch, it instructed. Jake hesitated only briefly before pressing his palm against the dragon's scaled skin. Immediately, his scanner exploded with activity, displaying energy patterns he'd never seen before. More than that, he could feel something flowing between them: information, emotion, raw possibility. Humans, the Red Dragon explained as Jake stared at his scanner in shock, are natural conduits for what you call magic and, we call fundamental force manipulation. Your species doesn't generate these energies internally like others do, but you can channel, focus, and direct them with unprecedented precision. The builders recognized this quality, added the Blue Dragon, but they saw it as another tool to exploit rather than a gift to nurture. Other species fear it, said the Green Dragon, because it means humans can potentially access abilities reserved for their genetic elites. Which explains why the Council keeps humans in maintenance roles, Jake realized, understanding flooding through him. They're not just dismissing us as inferior. They're actively suppressing us to maintain their own advantages. Indeed, confirmed the Golden Dragon. But suppression only works if those being suppressed remain ignorant of their true capabilities. Jake looked at his scanner again, watching energy patterns dance across the display in response to his proximity to the dragons. And now I'm not ignorant anymore. Now, agreed the Red Dragon, you are awake. As we are awake. The question becomes, what will we do with this awakening? Learn, Jake said immediately. Explore. Figure out what humans are really capable of when we're not being told to stay in our place. And, after that, prompted the Blue Dragon. Jake considered the question seriously. The implications were staggering. If humans really possessed latent abilities that other species actively suppressed, then everything about galactic civilization was built on a lie. Everything about humanity's supposed inferiority was propaganda designed to maintain someone else's power. After that, he said finally, we change things. The four dragons smiled, an expression that somehow worked perfectly on their transformed features. Then, we are truly partners in this endeavor, said the Golden Dragon. And, the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. As Jake began planning their emergence into galactic society, he couldn't shake the feeling that he just committed himself to something far larger than helping four ancient beings explore the modern galaxy. He was helping to awaken something that had been sleeping in humanity itself, the potential that others had worked so hard to keep dormant. The dragons had found their guide into the new age. But, more than that, they'd found their allies in changing it. The forged documentation was flawless by the time Jake finished implementing it. For new identities in the galactic database, complete with biometric scans, medical records, and immigration histories that painted them as refugees from the Andorian Reach. The bureaucratic trail showed processing delays, clerical errors, and the kind of administrative confusion that made council officials avoid asking too many questions. Kane Emberite, the identity Jake created for the Red Dragon, listed his profession as geological consultant with expertise in volcanic systems. Title Deep Current, the Blue Dragon's new persona, specialized in atmospheric processing and water reclamation. Verdant Growthseed claimed botanical expertise and ecosystem management. And Aurelius Dawnforge, the Golden Dragon's alias, carried credentials in advanced materials engineering and energy systems. The names are somewhat obvious, Title observed as Jake displayed the completed documentation on his portable unit. Obvious to anyone who knows what to look for, Jake agreed. But, galactic databases contain billions of beings with descriptive names. No one will look twice unless they already suspect the truth. Kane studied his new identity profile with interest. Geological consultant. An appropriate cover for explaining knowledge of planetary formation and mineral composition. And it gives you legitimate reasons to visit mining facilities, archaeological sites, and research stations, Jake added. Places where you might encounter builder ruins or other remnants of ancient civilizations. Verdant nodded approvingly. Botanical expertise will allow me to study how ecosystems have evolved since our imprisonment. Much has likely changed in 7,000 years. Everything has changed, Jake assured her. The galaxy you remember doesn't exist anymore. New species have achieved spaceflight, old empires have fallen, entirely different technologies have become standard. You'll be starting from scratch. Perhaps, said Aurelius thoughtfully, but starting from scratch has advantages. No preconceptions about what should be possible or impossible. Speaking of possibilities, Jake said, pulling up galactic transportation schedules, I've arranged passage on a commercial transport leaving for Nexus Station tomorrow. It's a major hub with representatives from hundreds of species. Good place to observe current galactic civilization without attracting attention. Kane's transformed features showed concern. You say passage as though you intend to accompany us. I do. That was not part of our arrangement, Title pointed out. We asked for guidance in understanding this new galaxy, not for a permanent human companion. Jake had expected this objection. You need more than understanding. You need someone who knows how to navigate galactic bureaucracy, how to recognize scams and political traps, how to interact with different species without triggering diplomatic incidents. I have 20 years of experience working throughout Council space. You have knowledge of a civilization that's been extinct for millennia. And your normal duties? Asked Verdant. I submitted a request for extended leave to pursue advanced technical training, Jake replied. perfectly normal for human workers looking to improve their skill ratings. Approved without question. Aurelius studied him intently. You risk your career to assist us. Why? Jake considered how to explain his motivations without sounding naive or overly dramatic. Because I've spent my entire adult life fixing things that other people break or ignore. And, right now, the biggest broken thing I can see is how the galaxy treats species like mine. If there's a chance to fix that, I want to be part of it. Even if the risk is considerable, pressed Kane. Especially then. The dragons exchanged their silent communication, and Jake sensed they were having a complex discussion about trust, necessity, and long-term planning. Finally, Aurelius spoke for the group. Very well. We accept your continued assistance, Jake Morrison. But, understand that our presence may draw attention we cannot predict or control. Ancient powers stirring always create ripples in the currents of fate. I'll deal with whatever comes, Jake said with more confidence than he felt. The transport to Nexus Station departed on schedule, carrying its cargo of legitimate passengers and, for beings who represented legends made manifest. Jake had booked separate accommodations for the group to avoid appearing as an organized unit, but the dragons proved remarkably adept at maintaining their cover identities during the journey. Kane engaged fellow passengers in technical discussions about mining techniques, demonstrating knowledge that impressed even experienced professionals. Tidal consulted on atmospheric problems with environmental engineers, offering insights that seemed innovative rather than impossible. Verdant discussed agricultural advances with farming representatives, subtly introducing concepts from ecological management systems that predated current civilization. Aurelius analyzed material samples for researchers, identifying properties that standard scanners had missed. Jake watched their interactions with growing amazement. The dragons weren't just maintaining their disguises, they were actively contributing to conversations, solving problems, and building professional reputations that would give them credibility throughout the galaxy. You're remarkable at this, he told Kane during a private moment in the transport's observation lounge. We have had considerable practice at adaptation, the disguised dragon replied. 7,000 years provides ample time for observing how different societies function. Even while imprisoned? Especially while imprisoned. The stasis chambers were designed to contain our bodies, not our awareness. We could sense the galaxy around us, feel the passage of civilizations, taste the changes in stellar radiation patterns as species rose and fell. Jake absorbed this information. So you know about humanity's history. Our expansion into space, our contact with other species, our current status. We know the outline, Kane confirmed. What we lack is understanding of the details. The politics, the economics, the social structures that determine how different species interact. And that's what Nexus Station will show you. Indeed. The station appeared on their view screen as a massive construct of metal and composite materials, bristling with docking bays and communication arrays. Ships of every size and configuration moved in carefully orchestrated patterns around the structure, while automated traffic control systems maintained order among the chaos of interstellar commerce. Impressive, murmured Tidal, who had joined them at the observation port. But crude compared to builder stations of our era. Functionality over elegance, Jake explained. The Council prioritizes efficiency and cost control. Everything is designed to move cargo and people as quickly as possible. And the people themselves, asked Verdant, studying the diverse crowd of passengers preparing for arrival. That's what you're about to learn. Nexus Station lived up to its reputation as a crossroads of galactic civilization. The main concourse teemed with beings from hundreds of different worlds, speaking dozens of languages, conducting business that spanned entire sectors. Jake led the dragons through the chaos, pointing out species representatives and explaining the complex social hierarchies that governed interspecies interaction. The tall ones with the crystalline skin are Zeridians, he said as they passed a group of elegant beings in expensive robes. Natural telepaths, considered one of the elder races. They control most of the galactic banking systems. And the small furry ones, asked Aurelius, indicating a cluster of energetic creatures engaged in rapid conversation. Pixians. Excellent engineers despite their size. They design most of the communication networks that keep the galaxy connected. Both species the Council considers superior to humans, Kane observed. Both species that benefit from keeping humans in maintenance roles, Jake corrected. The Zeridians need manual labor for their mining operations. The Pixians need technicians who can work in environments too dangerous for their own people. They found lodging in the station's residential sector, for separate units that Jake had reserved using their new identities. The dragons adapted to their accommodations with minimal complaint, though Jake noticed they positioned themselves to maintain sightlines to each other's quarters. Old habits, Kane explained when Jake commented on the arrangement. 7,000 years of imprisonment teaches caution about isolation. Over the following days, the dragons immersed themselves in station life with systematic thoroughness. They visited commercial districts, research facilities, entertainment venues, and administrative offices. They observed negotiations, attended cultural events, and engaged in the kind of casual conversations that revealed how galactic society really functioned. What they discovered disturbed them. The system is more sophisticated than we anticipated, Tidal reported during one of their evening meetings in Jake's quarters. The suppression of human potential operates at every level of civilization. Education systems that direct humans toward manual labor, added Verdant. Economic structures that make advancement difficult for species without natural abilities. Social hierarchies that reinforce inferiority complexes. And, most insidious of all, said Aurelius grimly, humans who have internalized these limitations and actively perpetuate them. Jake nodded sadly. I've seen it my entire life. Humans who insist we should be grateful for whatever opportunities the Council provides. Who argue that we shouldn't reach beyond our designated roles because it might upset the established order. Fear, Kane diagnosed. Fear of change, fear of conflict, fear of discovering that everything they believe about their place in the galaxy might be wrong. Can it be overcome? Asked Jake. In individuals, certainly, Aurelius replied. But, changing an entire species' self-perception requires more than logic or evidence. It requires demonstration. Demonstration of what? Of what humans can truly accomplish when they stop limiting themselves, said Tidal. And, we may have found an opportunity to provide such demonstration. She activated a holographic display showing recent news feeds from the galactic networks. There is a crisis developing in the Kepler sector. A rogue asteroid containing unusual mineral deposits has been detected on a collision course with the inhabited world of Thesha Prime. Standard deflection techniques have failed, continued Verdant. The asteroid's composition interferes with conventional technology. Council experts estimate 67% probability of planetary impact within 36 standard days. Evacuation efforts are underway, added Kane, but Thesha Prime has a population of over 2 billion beings. Transport capacity is insufficient for complete evacuation before impact. Aurelius smiled grimly. The Council has declared the situation beyond current technological solutions and authorized experimental approaches to the problem. Jake studied the data, understanding beginning to dawn. You want to solve it. We want to help humans solve it, Tidal corrected. Using abilities your species doesn't know it possesses, guided by knowledge the galaxy thought lost forever. The risk is enormous, Jake pointed out. If we fail, billions die. If we succeed in a way that's too obviously impossible, we expose everything about your true nature and human capabilities. Yes, Kane agreed cheerfully. But, consider the alternative, allowing those billions to die when we possess the power to save them, simply because revelation might prove inconvenient. Jake looked around the group, seeing ancient determination in 4 pairs of eyes. These beings had survived the fall of empires and the passage of millennia. They had endured imprisonment and awakened to find themselves in a galaxy they barely recognized. And now they were proposing to risk everything they'd gained to save the lives of strangers. It was, Jake realized, exactly what he'd hoped humanity would learn to do. What do you need from me? He asked. Help us assemble a response team, Aurelius said immediately. Humans with technical expertise and open minds. People who can be trusted with impossible truths and extraordinary possibilities. And, then? Jake prompted. Then, said Kane with anticipation burning in his transformed features, we show the galaxy what dragons and humans can accomplish when they work together. The crisis at Thesha Prime was about to become something entirely unprecedented, the awakening of human potential on a scale that would reshape galactic civilization forever. And it would start with 4 impossible beings and 1 engineer who had refused to accept the limitations others imposed on his species. Assembling a response team of humans with the right combination of technical expertise and mental flexibility proved more challenging than Jake had anticipated. Most of his professional contacts were deeply embedded in the Council's hierarchical system, conditioned to seek approval from alien supervisors before making significant decisions. The kind of independent thinking required for this mission was systematically discouraged in human workers. But Jake knew where to find the exceptions. Dr. Sarah Chen had been blacklisted from major research institutions after proposing theories about quantum consciousness that challenged accepted scientific doctrine. She currently worked as a freelance consultant on Nexus Station, solving problems that established experts couldn't handle. Marcus Kowalski was a former military engineer who'd been court-martialed for refusing to implement a weapons system he considered morally unacceptable. He specialized in rapid prototyping and emergency solutions, the kind of work that kept him away from official oversight. Elena Vasquez had trained as a xenoarchaeologist before being forced out of academic positions for suggesting that human technological development showed signs of external influence. She'd turned to private exploration, documenting builder ruins that major expeditions ignored. 3 humans who'd proven they could think beyond imposed limitations. 3 professionals whose careers had been derailed for asking uncomfortable questions. 3 people who might be ready to learn that their species was capable of extraordinary things. Jake approached them separately, using cover stories about a privately funded research mission to study the Thesha Prime crisis. He offered generous compensation and complete intellectual freedom, conditions that legitimate council projects never provided. All 3 accepted without hesitation. The real revelations came during their first team meeting in a secure conference room Jake had rented using Aurelius's identity. The asteroid's mineral composition is unprecedented, Jake explained, displaying detailed scans on the room's holographic projector. Standard deflection methods fail because the materials actively resist conventional energy applications. Actively resist? Dr. Chen leaned forward, studying the data with professional fascination. These readings suggest the minerals have properties that shouldn't be possible under current theoretical frameworks. Which is why, said Kane, stepping forward in his human scale form, we require unconventional approaches to the problem. Marcus looked up from his portable scanner, which was displaying impossible readings in Kane's presence. Who are you people, exactly? And why is my equipment going crazy whenever you move? Jake had rehearsed this moment, but actually explaining the truth still felt surreal. They're refugees from the Andorian Reach, recently contacted by galactic civilization. Their species possesses abilities that our science doesn't fully understand yet. What kind of abilities? Elena asked, her archaeological instincts clearly triggered by the unusual energy signatures. Tidal answered by reaching out to touch Elena's scanner. Immediately, the device's display exploded with activity, showing energy patterns that cycled through configurations Elena had never seen before. We call it force manipulation, Tidal explained as Elena stared at her scanner in shock. The ability to interact directly with fundamental energies that shape reality. Your people once possessed similar capabilities, before they were systematically suppressed by other species. That's impossible, Dr. Chen said reflexively, then paused as her scientific training reasserted itself. Or rather, it contradicts everything I've been taught about human evolution and capabilities. Much of what humans have been taught, said Verdun gently, was designed to limit rather than educate. Your species represents a threat to established power structures, so those structures have worked to convince you that you're naturally inferior. Marcus set down his scanner and looked directly at Jake. This is about more than deflecting an asteroid, isn't it? Yes, Jake admitted. It's about discovering what humans can really do when they stop accepting artificial limitations. Aurelius stepped forward, radiating the calm authority of someone accustomed to momentous decisions. The crisis at Thesha Prime represents an opportunity to demonstrate human potential on a galactic stage. Success will prove that your species deserves equal treatment among the stars. And failure? Elena asked. Failure results in billions of deaths and the continued suppression of human capabilities, Kane said bluntly. The risks are enormous, but so are the potential rewards. Dr. Chen was studying the energy readings on her scanner, her expression shifting from skepticism to amazement. These patterns, they're similar to theoretical models I developed years ago. Models that got me banned from mainstream research. Because your models were correct, Tidal confirmed. And because correctness threatened those who benefit from humanity's ignorance. Show us, Marcus demanded suddenly. If we're really capable of these abilities, prove it. The dragons exchanged glances, then Kane nodded. Join hands, he instructed the humans. Form a circle and prepare yourselves for revelation. Jake had experienced this before, but for the others it was completely unprecedented. As the 5 humans linked hands with the 4 dragons, energy began to flow between them in patterns that Jake's scanner couldn't properly measure. Dr. Chen gasped as quantum equations began resolving in her mind with perfect clarity. Marcus felt mechanical systems responding to his thoughts with unprecedented precision. Elena suddenly understood the real purpose of builder ruins she'd studied for years. And Jake discovered that his connection to the dragons had grown stronger, allowing him to sense their true thoughts and emotions for the first time. The revelation lasted only minutes, but its impact was permanent. When the energy flow subsided, 4 humans stared at each other with completely transformed perspectives on their own species and its place in the galaxy. How long have we been capable of this? Dr. Chen asked, her voice filled with wonder and anger. Always, Aurelius replied. But your potential has been carefully managed by those who fear what awakened humans might accomplish. The Council knows? Elena demanded. The Council suspects, Verdant corrected. They have contingency plans for suppressing human advancement, but they've never dealt with humans who understand their true capabilities. Which brings us back to Thesha Prime, Jake said, refocusing the group on their immediate mission. We have 34 days to develop a solution that conventional technology can't provide. Are we ready to try the impossible? Dr. Chen was already pulling up theoretical frameworks on her portable unit, equations flowing across the display with new understanding guiding her calculations. The asteroid's composition, it's not resisting energy applications randomly. There's a pattern, almost like it's designed to interact with specific frequencies. Builder technology, Elena realized, studying the mineral analysis with fresh perspective. These aren't natural formations. They're artificial constructs, probably designed as defensive measures. Defensive against what? Marcus asked. Against species that rely on conventional energy manipulation, Kane answered grimly. The builders created many weapons during their decline, including asteroids that could resist deflection attempts by other civilizations. So this isn't a random cosmic event, Jake concluded. This is a 7,000-year-old weapon finally reaching its target. Thesha Prime was likely a builder enemy during the ancient wars, Tidal explained. The asteroid was probably launched as a delayed retaliation strike, designed to arrive long after the immediate conflict ended. But the builders are extinct, Dr. Chen pointed out. Their weapons, said Aurelius darkly, are not. The implications settled over the group like a heavy blanket. They weren't just dealing with a natural disaster or technological failure. They were confronting a weapon system designed by a vanished civilization to destroy enemies that no longer existed. Can it be stopped? Elena asked. Not by conventional methods, Verdant replied. The asteroid's defenses are specifically designed to resist standard deflection techniques. But those defenses assume attackers will use only external energy applications. What about internal approaches? Marcus suggested, his engineering mind already working on the problem. Exactly, Kane said approvingly. The asteroid's defenses protect against external manipulation, but they can't prevent changes initiated from within its structure. Dr. Chen looked up from her calculations. You're talking about boarding the asteroid and modifying it from the inside. Impossible, Marcus said immediately. The approach velocity alone would be lethal. No existing spacecraft could match trajectory and achieve stable contact. No existing Council spacecraft, Aurelius corrected. But there are other possibilities. Jake felt understanding dawn as he processed the dragon's expressions. You're planning to do this personally. In your true forms. We have the capability to intercept the asteroid directly, Tidal confirmed. Our natural abilities include operation in deep space without technological support. But you'd be exposed, Elena protested. If anyone detects 4 dragons intercepting a crisis asteroid, every assumption about galactic civilization gets shattered. Not if, said Kane with a dangerous smile, we ensure that official observers see only human ships and human crews accomplishing the impossible. The plan that emerged over the following hours was audacious beyond anything Jake had imagined. The dragons would intercept the asteroid in their true forms, using their natural abilities to approach and board the massive construct. Meanwhile, the human team would follow in modified ships, arriving just as the internal modifications began taking effect. To outside observers, it would appear that human engineers had somehow succeeded where council experts failed, using innovative techniques and unprecedented teamwork to save billions of lives. The technical challenges are enormous, Dr. Chen warned as they refined the details. We'll need to modify ships for asteroid approach, develop tools for internal structural manipulation, and coordinate timing to within minutes across interplanetary distances. All while making it look like we're using technology that officially exists, added Marcus. And ensuring the solution appears reproducible by other human teams, Elena pointed out. If this looks like a unique miracle, it won't change anything about how the galaxy perceives our species. These challenges, said Aurelius with ancient confidence, are why we chose to work with humans rather than attempting this alone. Your species excels at making the impossible appear routine. And making routine things seem impossible when it suits your purposes, added Tidal with amusement. Jake looked around the group, seeing determination building in every face. These were people who'd spent their careers being told their ideas were wrong, their methods unacceptable, their potential limited. Now they were being offered the chance to prove that human capabilities exceeded every assumption the galaxy had made. When do we start? He asked. Immediately, Kane replied. The asteroid's approach gives us limited time for preparation, and failure is not an option we can accept. Then, let's get to work, Dr. Chen said, already deep in calculations that would reshape humanity's understanding of its own potential. As the team dispersed to begin their preparations, Jake remained behind with the dragons for a moment. Are you certain about this? He asked quietly. Once we reveal what humans can really do, there's no going back to the way things were. There is no going back regardless, Aurelius replied. We are awake, you are awakened, and change has already begun. The question is whether the change will be guided by wisdom or forced by crisis. And you believe we can guide it? We believe, said Kane firmly, that humans and dragons working together can accomplish things neither could achieve alone. The galaxy is about to learn what that partnership can produce. The countdown to Thesha Prime's salvation had begun, and, with it, the countdown to a new age in galactic civilization. 29 days remained when the improvised fleet departed Nexus Station. 3 modified cargo haulers, officially registered as an independent research consortium investigating unconventional deflection methods. The Council had granted permission grudgingly, viewing the human effort as a long-shot experiment that wouldn't interfere with official evacuation procedures. Jake commanded the lead vessel, with Dr. Chen monitoring quantum resonance patterns that standard equipment couldn't properly detect. Marcus had redesigned their ship's engines to operate beyond normal parameters, while Elena studied builder defensive systems using archaeological knowledge that suddenly made perfect sense. The dragons traveled separately, their true forms moving through deep space along trajectories no conventional scanner could track. To galactic monitoring systems, the asteroid remained on its inexorable collision course with Thesha Prime, defended by energy fields that had already defeated 6 attempted deflection missions. Approaching optimal intercept position, Dr. Chen reported as their ship closed on the massive construct. The asteroid filled their main display, a jagged mountain of exotic minerals that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Energy shields are adapting to our presence, Marcus added, studying his modified scanner readings. The defensive systems are definitely artificial, just like Elena predicted. Builder technology is remarkable, Elena said with professional admiration. Even after 7,000 years, these systems operate flawlessly. No wonder the builders dominated their era. Domination, Jake observed, doesn't seem to have brought them happiness or survival. His communication system activated with an encrypted signal from Aurelius. We are in position, Jake Morrison. Beginning infiltration of the asteroid's internal structure. On their displays, nothing appeared to change. The asteroid continued its steady approach toward Thesha Prime, its defensive field showing no signs of disruption. But Jake could feel something shifting in the quantum patterns Dr. Chen was monitoring, subtle changes that suggested the dragons had successfully penetrated the construct's defenses. Reading massive internal energy redistributions, Dr. Chen reported. Something is happening inside the asteroid, but the external shields are masking the signatures. Beginning approach sequence, Jake announced, activating the modifications Marcus had made to their propulsion systems. The ship lurched as unconventional engines engaged, pushing them through energy fields that should have been impenetrable. How are we doing this? Marcus asked in amazement, watching his instruments track their impossible progress. Because, Jake said, finally, understanding the truth he'd been feeling since his first encounter with the dragons, we're not actually using the technology everyone thinks we're using. Dr. Chen looked up from her readings. The quantum resonance patterns, they're being generated by our presence, not our equipment. We're directly manipulating the energy fields. Human abilities, Elena realized. Awakened by contact with beings who remember what our species was capable of before the suppression began. Their ship penetrated the asteroid's outer defensive layer just as the internal changes reached critical thresholds. Through the quantum link Jake shared with the dragons, he could sense their progress: massive caverns carved through solid matter by force of will, energy conduits rerouted with precision no tool could match, structural modifications that would redirect the asteroid's trajectory without destroying its essential integrity. Thesha Prime Control, this is Research Team Morrison, Jake broadcast on official channels. We have achieved successful penetration of the asteroid's defensive grid and are implementing internal deflection procedures. The response came immediately, laden with disbelief and desperate hope. Research Team Morrison, confirm your status. Multiple Council missions have failed to breach those defenses. Confirmed, Control. We're utilizing unconventional resonance techniques to interact directly with the asteroid's internal structure. Estimated completion of deflection procedures in 6 hours. What followed was 6 hours of the most complex engineering operation Jake had ever witnessed. Working in perfect coordination with the dragons, the human team guided their modified equipment through processes that redefined the boundaries of technological possibility. Dr. Chen's quantum calculations provided targeting data for energy manipulations that occurred through human will rather than mechanical application. Marcus's modified tools responded to mental direction, shaping matter at the molecular level. Elena's archaeological expertise identified critical structural points that conventional scanners couldn't detect. And, through it all, the dragons worked their ancient power through channels that made their intervention invisible to external observation. To Council monitoring systems, everything appeared to be accomplished by human innovation and determination. Deflection burn successful, Jake reported as the asteroid's trajectory shifted by precisely calculated margins. Thesha Prime is no longer in the impact zone. The celebration that erupted across galactic communication channels was audible even through their ship's modest receivers. 2 billion lives saved by what appeared to be impossible human achievement. The success sent shockwaves through every major civilization, challenging assumptions about human capabilities that had seemed unshakable. Well done, Jake Morrison, came Aurelius's voice over their encrypted channel. The first demonstration is complete. The first? Elena asked. This, said Kane's voice, joining the communication, was merely proof of concept. The real work begins now. The return journey to civilized space took 3 weeks, during which galactic civilizations struggled to process what had occurred. Official reports documented unprecedented human technological innovation. Unofficial analyses suggested that accepted theories about species capabilities required fundamental revision. And, deep in the research databases of major institutions, scientists began quietly investigating historical records for evidence of suppressed human potential. Dr. Chen received 17 job offers from prestigious universities before their ship reached Nexus Station. Marcus found himself courted by military contractors and civilian engineering firms who wanted to understand his breakthrough propulsion modifications. Elena discovered that her theories about builder influence on human development were suddenly being taken seriously by mainstream archaeologists. But the real changes were more subtle and far more significant. Human advancement applications have increased by 400%, Jake reported during their first reunion meeting back on Nexus Station. Technical training requests are up 600%. And there are reports of humans throughout Council space beginning to demonstrate abilities that were previously unrecorded. The awakening spreads, Verdant observed with satisfaction. Knowledge of what is possible creates possibility itself. The Council is concerned, Title added, consulting news feeds on her portable unit. Emergency sessions have been called to discuss managing human development in safe and controlled manner. In other words, Marcus said grimly, they want to figure out how to suppress us again before we become too dangerous to control. Let them try, Dr. Chen said with quiet confidence. They can't uninvent what we've learned or unexperience what we've accomplished. Aurelius activated a holographic display showing galactic political developments since their return. The response has been more rapid than we anticipated. Several species are already proposing new restrictions on human activities and technology access. Opposition was inevitable, Kane noted. Power structures do not yield without resistance. But resistance creates opportunity, Elena pointed out. Species that try to maintain human suppression will find themselves at a disadvantage against species that embrace human partnership. Jake studied the political analysis, seeing patterns that suggested the galaxy was entering a period of fundamental transformation. What happens next? Next, said Aurelius, we expand the demonstration. The success at Thesha Prime proves that humans can accomplish extraordinary things when they understand their true potential. Now we need to show that this wasn't a unique occurrence. More crisis interventions? Dr. Chen asked. More opportunities for humans to discover what they're really capable of, title corrected. Crises, research projects, exploration missions, diplomatic initiatives. Every situation where human abilities can be demonstrated and developed. And every success, added Verdant, will inspire other humans to push beyond the limitations they've accepted. A cascade effect, Marcus realized. Each awakened human helps awaken others, until the suppression becomes impossible to maintain. Precisely, confirmed Kane. But the process requires guidance. Humans who understand both their potential and the forces working against its realization. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on him again. What had begun as helping four ancient beings understand modern civilization had evolved into orchestrating the awakening of humanity's true potential. Are we ready for this? He asked. For changing the entire structure of galactic civilization? The question, Aurelius replied, is whether we're prepared for the consequences of not changing it. The current system is unsustainable. It depends on suppressing species with enormous potential while elevating others based solely on genetic advantages. And, now that the suppression is breaking down, Title added, the system will either evolve or collapse. We intend, said Verdant firmly, to ensure it evolves rather than collapses. How? Elena asked. The golden dragon smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed both ancient wisdom and timeless hope. By proving that cooperation produces better results than domination. That partnership achieves more than exploitation. That diversity of abilities creates strength rather than threatening it. The galaxy, Kane added, is about to learn what happens when humans stop limiting themselves and start collaborating with species that appreciate their true worth. Dr. Chen pulled up a list of research projects that had been proposed in the wake of their success. 17 major institutions want human consultation on impossible problems. 6 different species have requested technology exchanges. And, the Galactic Council has authorized formation of integrated research teams for the first time in recorded history. Integration, Marcus mused. Not human subordination to alien authority. Partnership, Jake agreed, understanding finally beginning to dawn. Real partnership, based on mutual respect and combined capabilities. This is what we dreamed of during our imprisonment, Aurelia said quietly. A galaxy where species worked together instead of maintaining artificial hierarchies. The builders could have achieved this, Verdant added sadly. They had the power to unite civilizations rather than dominating them. But they chose fear over trust. We choose differently, Title declared. We all choose differently, Elena corrected, including the humans in the statement. Jake looked around the group, seeing determination and hope in every face. For ancient beings who had survived the fall of empires and the passage of millennia. For humans who had proven their species could achieve the impossible when they stopped accepting artificial limitations. Together, they represented something unprecedented in galactic history, a partnership between two species that complemented rather than competed with each other. So what's our next impossible mission? Jake asked. Kane's grin was full of ancient mischief and timeless possibility. We're going to change everything, Jake Morrison. One awakened human at a time, one impossible achievement at a time, until the galaxy remembers what cooperation can accomplish. The age of suppression was ending. The age of partnership was about to begin. And, deep in abandoned minds throughout the galaxy, other ancient powers stirred in their sleep, drawn by the quantum ripples of change that four dragons and their human allies had set in motion. The galaxy would never be the same again.